Evening and welcome to our meeting tonight of Audit and Governance. The meeting this evening will be live streamed to the public. The induction loop is now in operation in the chamber. Any exempt private items on the agenda, the live stream will cease prior to the meeting moving into private. There might be a short delay. A recording of the public part of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting ending. Would members and officers please remember to switch microphones on when speaking and speak directly into them and switch off when finished. Any officers that are called upon by the portfolio holder should address the executive using the microphone marked presenting officer at the rear of the council chambers. Switch off mobile phones off or place them on silent. Thank you. Are there any apologies for absent?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillors Ahmed, Javeria Hussain and Masood.
Thank you. We have the minutes before us. Those in attendance at the last minute, are they in agreement with the minutes? Yes.
Just got a change. I believe I'm not on there, but I've spoken to Bert and I was. So we're just with that change, I'm happy.
Okay. So besides you not being minuted in attendance, you're happy with the minutes. Okay. Are all in attendance happy with the minutes? Yeah. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 3, disclosures of interest. Members are reminded that they must disclose both the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest and any personal interest that they have in any matter to be considered at the meeting, unless the interest is a sensitive interest, in which event they need not disclose the nature of the interest. A member with a disclosable pecuniary interest must not further participate in any discussions of, vote on, or take any executive steps in relation to the items of business. A member with a personal interest, which is a member of the public with knowledge of the relevant facts, would reasonably regard as so significant that it is likely to prejudice the member's judgment of the public interest, must similarly not participate in any disclosures of, vote on, or take any executive steps in relation to the items of business. Disclosable interests and personal interests are defined in the Council's Code of Conduct for members and co-opted members. Moving on to item 4, Section 106 Local Government Act 1992. Those items on the agenda affected by Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992 will be identified at the meeting. Any member so affected is reminded that she should disclose the fact and refrain from voting on those items. Moving on to item 5 of the agenda, the Chair to report on any urgent business. I don't believe there's any urgent business, is there?
No urgent business, Chair.
Right. Are there any references, item 600, references from committee and other bodies?
None, Chair.
Right. We're now moving on to item 7, shared anti-fraud service report. Can the report author now speak? Thank you.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, members. The report before you is our plan for the financial year 2023 and 2024. As the plan has been circulated, I'm assuming members will have had sight of the plan and aware of the detail within it. I'm just going to highlight a couple of areas, if that's all right with you, Chair. Thank you. The report's referenced at paragraph 4 on page 7 of the report at the very beginning are, I must say, recommended reading for all members and not just those members who are on this committee, and I'd encourage you to share them with your member colleagues. This plan for 23-24 has been designed to meet the recommendations of the Fighting Fraud and Corruption Locally strategy. The plan, Appendix 1, which is pages 11 and 17 of the bundle, identifies the officers and members who are charged with delivering it, with whom the team at the Shared Anti-Fraud Service will be working closely with in the forthcoming year. These officers and members are detailed at pages 18 and 19 of the report bundle. At page 9, you'll see that we have included some new areas of work with SAS in this year's plan, and that includes schools and children's services. An explanation of the funding and resources are found at paragraphs 16 to 20 on page 9 of the report, and the full plan is, as I said, available at Appendix 1, and that's page 11. At the top of page 15 of this appendix is the biggest change in this year's plan, different from all the previous years. As a service, we've moved away from dedicated officers at each partner to an allocated number of days per partner, and that's highlighted as 710 days for the Council on this report. This change will see cases managed by type by different teams rather than the dedicated officers having a combination of low-level and complex cases. This will allow focus on these two distinct areas, which will allow more effective responses at all levels of investigation, and also naturally will build in a resilience to the provision of the service across the team members. The full explanation of the work plans and projects is found on page 15, and the KPIs and standards are provided at page 17. And Chair, that's the brief summary of that report, which is quite short.
Thank you. Does members have any questions on the report? The Chapman.
I've only got one, Chair, and that is from the point of view of any vacancies and just numbers of staff. Are we having trouble in recruiting? Because in previous years we always have. So just a guidance there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we have had problems. I'm pleased to say that since I was last here, we've recruited 5 new members to the team. 3 started last week. As always, we have discovered another 2 vacancies, which we're well on the way to recruiting people into those posts for too.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Councillor Underwood.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned page 15 about switching from dedicated staff for ourselves to a number of days of counter fraud work of fraud work. Is there any particular reason for that, or?
Yes, we've thought long and hard about how we provide our service to all our partners, and it's quite clear, and I think Luton has been affected particularly by it, that if we have a lack of resilience in one particular partner, then another partner will suffer. If we split it, and that's resilience in staffing issues, sickness and the like, but also demands of quite complex cases that can take a lot of time, which means if that has a caseload of varying different sorts of cases, the priority case, which may for various different reasons they prioritise, risk and loss and immediate intervention is required, then the other cases may suffer. So we've split it down to what we would call a volume area, so that's housing, council tax, which is our business as usual, lots of work from all our different partners, and in the other team where it's more complex, so they will have a lesser caseload, but intrinsically each case will be more complicated and demand more of their time and more expertise. The other win from that is that both teams now contain people who have worked for this council and other partners as well. So whilst you have me, Nick, and individual officers are forward-facing, Nick and I will maintain the relationship. They will carry on the business as usual, either with the complex cases or the volume cases, but none of them will be strangers to this authority. So that actually brings back some people with some very good skills that we had to move to provide leverage in a different part of the service.
Yeah, again.
So it's so you say, talking about lack of resilience, is that on the part of ourselves or on the member councils or yourselves?
It's related to your colleague's question, basically, that the resilience is due to when we have less staff due to sickness or people leaving and difficulty in recruiting, if we've got losses in one partner, and Luton historically has had 3 fraud investigators and an intelligence officer, if we were to lose 2 of those investigators, you'd be left with 1, and then we'd have to rob Peter to pay Paul. So this way, conceivably, an officer in the volume team would be holding cases for council tax and housing matters and dealing with the NFI exercise across all of the partners. So someone, a larger number of people are doing the work for the individual partners, as opposed to a dedicated group.
Are there any more questions from members? Thank you for your report.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your questions, members.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to change the order of the items on the agenda. So I'm going to now go to item 11 and 12, and then I'll go back to 8, 9 and 10.
Sorry, Chair, do you need to review and agree the report, I think? That's what it's here for.
Say that again?
I think you need to review and agree the report, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. I think.
Thank you for the correction. Does the committee approve the anti-fraud plan for 2023-24? Thank you. Yeah? Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. It's a very busy evening for you. Thank you. Right, is every...
That is the report of the Director of Finance, Revenue and Benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is about the 18-19 accounts. So what you have been presented, I think we have been reporting to both the Audit Committee on several occasions, and myself and our colleagues from Ernst & Young, and it has been reported to FRG as well. So I think we've reached the final stage now. So right now you will see the final statement of accounts for 18-19, but it's still subject to Janet and her team to go through the final clearance with EY, because they have to go through the process, and then EY will be able to issue their audit opinion. So that audit opinion goes with the accounts. But as far as the figures are concerned, we work very closely with EY, and it made adjustment which EY requested, and then we've got the valuation, which was, so I will take you through the report, the main issues. But right now what you have is the final, and if there's anything which is going to happen in the next 2 weeks, if it's not significant, then we will go with the accounts. If it's significant, then we'll bring it back to audit committee. So I'll take you through the recommendation. So it has been a long journey, and this is the final version. Just to put into context, you will see on paragraph 11, that gives you a rough, brief summary of the update on the progress. So there were issues, one with the LAL valuation. So there was discussion, we are talking about a significant increase in the valuation. So quite rightly, the EY team and our state valuers, which are Deloitte, they had to work closely and look at the valuation. But you will see in paragraph Roman letter 111, the value has gone up from 532 to 1.4 billion. So because it's a significant increase in the value of the airport, we had to get 16-17 and 17-18 valuation done as well. Because 18-19, we have to reinstate prior years. So that's why we had to get free valuation. But I'm glad that we agree on the figures. So EY has got a range, so those value falls within the range. Then, as a result of the valuation, we had what we call tax. So it's a deferred tax. So it's a notional figure that if you make a capital gain, you have to pay tax. So when you realize that gain, then the tax crystallizes. But in the interim, you have to put deferred taxation. So that deferred taxation computation was done by PricewaterhouseCoopers. So that as well, you had to go through the process, provide evidence, and make sure our EY team are comfortable. So if you look at third Roman letters, the net increase in the value is nearly £750 million. So that is the increase in the value of the airport. And the main reason for the increase in the value of the airport is to do the reversionary value. So when the airport comes back to the council in 2032, then the whole profit reverts back to LAL. So right now the concessionaire are keeping part of the element of the profit because they are running the airport, but everything come back to LAL. But then from that date, if you take the profit which will come back to LAL, then the value goes up significantly. So those are the things have been cleared. The fourth Roman letters is about development consent order. So this one we have been discussing on few occasions at audit committee. So this one I think we agree to disagree with EY, and there will be what we call a limitation of scope in the audit report. So it has been explained there, and we have discussed this at great length at audit committee. Then we've also discussed already that in terms of procurement, there is a value for money qualification, but there has been an improvement plan and we've put in place. So there was a lot of things which were being done, like spot purchase, especially for care in social care, because you've got individual patient needs individual care. So sometimes they were buying on the spot, but now there is a plan, and internal audit is doing regular review to make sure. But that as well, we work closely with our EY team to provide them all the reassurance as well. But because this happened already in those years, then there will be value for money qualification. And the other thing we've already discussed, that SIPA, we agreed to impair that 6.3. So those are the things which we've already discussed in great length, but the one in terms of the valuation, and the account itself had some inconsistencies, some things which had to correct. So we work now, what you've got in front of you is a set of accounts which in substance is as good as can be. So that's the final version, but then we'll go through a process where EY and the team will go through their own internal process to get that clearance, because it's quite a sort of complex, because LAL and LBC accounts are complex due to the nature of our exposure in terms of commercialization. But it's just reminding, during those 2018-19, we were hit by COVID. We had to put an emergency budget. The whole going concern we had to look at, and not just for us, the whole industry. So everybody of the COVID, even private sector, were looking at whether there would be a going concern or not. Then we had the special force measure, we had the airport valuation, we had group, we had prior adjustment to do 16, 17, 17, 18. Then we had the infrastructure asset, which government eventually issued some guidance to help all local government. So all these things made it extremely complex and technical. So now I hope that once this is cleared, the 1920, we will have a basis on which to reflect those technical things in the 1920 and 2021 accounts. So hopefully, I'm sure Janet will have a few words to add, but what you've got in front of you is the recommendation where you're noting, because it's not approved yet and it hasn't got the audit report. So when it's come with the audit report, then final, then the delegation is, if there's any significant changes, then we'll bring it back to audit committee. If there's nothing significant, then we'll just approve it and we'll bring it to the next audit committee with the audit report for final approval. And then all the issues raised, we've addressed those. There might be minor other things which we'll have to check with auditors. But what you've got here, hopefully we've got the final version, which I'm sure Janet will make some comments. But it has been a journey. We work with, thankful to our auditors as well. We work closely together, but I think we've reached the end of that journey now. Thank you, Chair.
Before I move on to, does anybody want to ask anything of our Section 151 officer before we go to Ernst & Young? Okay, so I'll let Janet come in and then open. Okay, over to you, Janet. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I don't have anything particularly much more to add to Dev's comments. His report sets out the key areas, where we have worked particularly closely over the last 12 months to resolve the issues. And as Dev has explained, we have now to conclude and close out those significant judgments. In particular, it's about consulting internally within the firm to make sure that we have the appropriate judgments on file to support our audit opinion. So we need to work through that, and the team is doing that as we speak, or at least they sent me an email at 6 o'clock tonight to tell me where they got to. So it is underway, and we just need to schedule the final closing meetings internally to confirm that we have the right information on file to then be able to conclude the audit and issue the opinion. And as Dev says, if we do identify anything in that period, and there is one element that we need Dev's attention on just to resolve some brought forward figures, but once we've resolved that, unless there's anything other significant issue, then I don't anticipate that we'll be bringing anything other to the committee for your attention to consider before the accounts are approved.
Okay, members, have you any questions to our Section 151 officer and to Janet from Ernst & Young? Over to you,
Yeah.
Mr. Councillor.
For clarification, so again, correct me if I'm wrong, the limitations of scope, Deb did answer it, it's a technical term for agree to disagree, is what he said. That's what I wrote to myself. So we're agreeing to disagree on the DCO. The valuation of the airport that's caused a problem, again, correct me if I'm wrong, please. One company's saying it's worth so much, one company's saying it's worth another amount, because you're both audit companies, you're both nationally recognised, internationally recognised audit companies. One obviously is valuing it higher than the other one feels it is. Why do we not go with the lower figure, therefore, to avoid all this confusion? Why do we have to go with the higher figure? Is my first question, please.
I think in terms of valuation, when we are referring to these values, the valuation has been carried out by Deloitte. So the valuation is done by Deloitte for LAL, and we use those valuation because those valuation goes in the LAL accounts. Our auditors, the group auditors, EY, their team, they have gone through the valuation carried out by Deloitte, and they've done their own reassurance and due diligence. And any valuation has got the range. So the range which we have included in the accounts, that range is within the range as per EY team. So the Deloitte valuation, which is our team, basically LAL team, and the EY team, they've got a range, and the value falls within that range. So that's the reason why our auditors, EY, they're not going to say that they don't agree the figures presented true and fair view. We have to bear in mind that we talk about not accurate, exact. Is it a fair reflection of the value? And the range with the EY team has worked on, our value fall within that range. So that's why the EY team won't be. There was some discussion about discount rate, so we've agreed, but the discount rate as well is within the range. So within that range, if it's a true and fair view, that's where we are. So the figures, our EY team agree with the figures, but it's a range. It's not that they agree with the X figure, but they say, yeah, it's within that range, so it's acceptable as a true and fair view, not absolutely accurate, because valuation, you do 10 valuation, you can have 10 different figures.
Yeah, I can understand that because it's just like value of a house. So I think mine's worth this, someone says it's worth that. But it appears the sticking point has been, while we're in this position, that one suggests it's higher than the other. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, like you're saying, they're kind of hypothetical. That why do we not go with the lower range? Why are we? It appears to me we're sticking out for the value of the LAL to be bigger than perhaps another audit company says it is. And my only thoughts around that is it to do with loans we have against our airport company? Because obviously if you want loans against something, you need a higher value for something. So I'm just a little confused. You're saying it's been agreed now within a range, so we're saying it could be this value or that value. It's quite a wide range. But so is that the case? We're basically saying someone said it's worth this, low value, someone said it's worth this high value. So we've got a big range now for the value of our airport because our two auditors can't agree on a narrower band, if I put it that way. Does that make sense?
I think if you're referring to the auditors, if you're referring to LAL, so in terms of valuation, when the valuation was done, there is a best case, worst case. So we always go with the central case, i.e. the mid one. So the figures you have in the account is the Deloitte valuation, but the central case. So they're saying there might be lower value, there might be higher value, but you go with the central case. Now, if you're referring to the discussion we had with the auditors, PricewaterhouseCoopers, who valued the LAL accounts, that was to do with 2021 figures, so which was last year's accounts, not 18-19. So there was a discussion with our auditors, LAL auditors, PricewaterhouseCoopers auditors, and there took a view on some of the areas where they put that in their audit report anyway. So, but from an EY point of view and from an auditor's point of view, we have to look at from what reflect in the group accounts here. So the figures which was included in LAL accounts, that get consolidated with LBC accounts. So those figures, yes, PwC commented on those figures, but I think the state team from Ernst & Young has gone through, and our valuers have provided our auditors or the group auditors with the reassurance so that these figures, we are comfortable with those figures and our auditors are content with those figures. So the one which was PricewaterhouseCoopers, that's different, but we have to go with what is the accounts which is approved by LAL and LAL Board of Directors, and then we see whether we are comfortable with those figures to put in our group accounts, and when we've done our due diligence, we are comfortable with those figures.
So I think the basis of your question is management's judgment as to why they've gone with the one particular figure, and as Dev has explained, he has the council's responsibility is to look at all of the advice that they have got and make a determination as to which estimate